The summer I turned 13, my family moved into a weathered farmhouse at the edge of a dying orchard. The closest neighbors were the Hargreaves, an elderly couple who kept to themselves, though their granddaughter, Elise, sometimes stayed with them. She was 15, sharp-tongued and magnetic, with a habit of collecting roadkill bones she'd bleach in the sun. We weren't friends, not exactly, but she'd let me watch her pore over the carcasses, her hands steady as a surgeon's. One evening, Elise mentioned her uncle had been released from prison. "Forget-me-not," she'd laughed, crushing a dried chrysanthemum under her boot. "He's the kind that sticks." 2 nights later, a storm knocked out the power. Her grandparents were at a church supper. She called me, voice crackling through the landline. "He's here, in the yard. Just stay on the phone." I heard the back door splinter, heard her curse, then a wet, rhythmic sound, like a spade sinking into soft earth. The line went dead. They found her in the root cellar, half buried under jars of preserves. Her uncle had sawed off her hands, arranged them palms up on the dirt like offerings. He'd taken the bones. Her funeral was closed casket. That winter, my mother planted forget-me-nots along the property line. They bloomed blue and trembling, even through the frost. Years later, my cousin Mara took a job as a night janitor at the old high school. She'd walk home along the train tracks, the woods hunched and hissing to her left. One October night, she noticed footsteps echoing hers, not in sync, but between her strides, like a second shadow learning her rhythm. She ran. The thing behind her laughed, low and wet, as if its throat were full of river water. The next morning, they found her keys dangling from a power line. Her sneakers sat neatly on the tracks, laces tied together. Inside each was a handful of wet leaves, knotted with black hair that wasn't hers. Mara never came home. But sometimes, when the moon's thin as a fingernail, I swear I hear her whistling down the tracks. A shrill, tuneless sound like someone trying to remember how to scream.